Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Monday evening to you all. Hope you guys have been having a great day out there so far and having yourselves a great night, a great start to your work week. Got you an update on what's going on with these two storm systems that we pretty much know are going to happen. We just don't know exactly how it's going to develop. Even this first system is kind of weird. We don't know exactly where the axis of heaviest snow is going to be as we get into about the middle to later part of this work week, but we're going to try to figure it out. But I can tell you, there's been some wild shifts, and I wouldn't call them like trends yet, I guess, but there has been some shifts in some of the latest model guidance today on that second system for this weekend, and it could potentially have some legs to it, meaning that these changes that we're seeing in these couple model runs could actually be something that trends into something different than what we've kind of thought was going to happen with this second system. But of course, we're still a few to several days out, and a lot of things can still change, but that's what we're here for. We're here to give you the latest and greatest information. So I'm going to show you some model runs that are going to excite some people, especially if you're in the mid-Atlantic, even portions of the I-95 corridor. But I want to remind you guys, as always, remember these models change. But I can tell you one thing, that as crazy bad as these models can be in the long range, once you start to get into the short range, the medium range is what I meant to say. A lot of times, they really start to lock on to somewhat of a solution. And if we back it up, say maybe 3-4 years ago, maybe that wasn't the case. We would have a lot of pull the rug out from under us kind of scenarios where we think it's going to snow. Then all of a sudden, okay, maybe it'll be a wintry mix, and then suddenly you're dealing with a cold rain. Happens a lot here in the southeast. So we're having some changes in a good way for winter weather fans for maybe this second system, but they can turn around and go the opposite direction overnight. I think the OOZ, the overnight model runs tonight, will be huge to see if these changes we've seen today actually have legs and they can develop into some kind of trend. So we're here to break it down for you guys. If you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, you guys know the deal. Please put it in the comments below. Gives me an opportunity to pray over it, and it gives others an opportunity to do so too. So let's get rolling. We'll talk about this first system first. I will tell you right at the dot tomorrow, we have a marginal risk of severe thunderstorms. That's a level 1 out of 5. This includes a lot of areas of Texas and southeast Texas, Austin, Houston, almost in San Antonio, almost up to Dallas, but not quite. This will really be later tomorrow evening in the overnight hours into tomorrow. Really, this won't get going until then, but we'll certainly watch this as basically a cutoff low that gets kind of cut off in the main flow of things here to the north. Well, it gets cut off and it starts to kind of pull up some ingredients for some severe weather here in Texas and a very small section of western Louisiana. So there will be a 2% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in any given location in this marginal risk. There'll be a small chance for damaging winds, and there will be a chance for hail. We'll watch for that. And then we'll also speak on this too. And there is a marginal risk for severe storms for our Wednesday. And the Storm Prediction Center has already said that, hey, we're likely going to upgrade this to a slight risk. We just don't know who we're going to put in the slight risk yet. And that is because we need some more of these short-range model guidance to come into view to see exactly what's going to happen. But this is a pretty large area that has a risk of strong to severe storms for the south as we get into our Wednesday. Include some pretty big cities: Memphis, Jackson, Birmingham, Mobile, Alabama, New Orleans, Baton Rouge, Shreveport. So there will be severe weather for our Wednesday as basically this cutoff low starts to really begin to eject itself and become more positively tilted, then eventually negatively tilted as it kind of surges across areas of the lower 48 and the plains, and then the Mississippi Valley and the Ohio Valley, and then the Midwest. So really how this evolves here, as I know you're looking at this, you're thinking, well, I just see orange and blue. Well, this is our cutoff low. So this is starting off tomorrow about midday. And what happens here is you see, let's see if I can do this on the fly here. I tried to do this on the fly before and it didn't really work. Where is it? Right here. So what we'll do here is you see how this is kind of bowing like this. And let's see if we can get this black. It's back this up. You see how this is, the isobars are kind of doing like this? When it's tilted like that, we call that a positive tilt. Okay, which normally is a weaker storm. I'll get rid of that and let's go on and move it a little bit more. No, we don't need that. This is why I don't fool with this much. And it's not because it's a bad thing to use. It's because there's a lot of clicking you have to do on the fly. If we keep this rolling, we'll go all the way out to about midday Wednesday. So this is about 24 hours later, right? So you look at this and we click this and you see how these ISO bars kind of dip down like that. That is what we call a neutral tilt. Okay? Which means you pretty much have a strengthening storm, which is happening here in the south central U.S. So you'll back up, go on and close this really quick, and then we'll go another 24 hours out, and really, honestly, about another 18 hours out, and really, I would say 12 to 15 hours out, and see the difference here? What we have here now is a negative tilt, and that is when it kind of goes like that. And that is when you have a strong storm. Normally with these, sometimes they can bring some nasty dynamics. Sometimes they can bring heavy snow. Sometimes they can bring a tornado outbreak. That's not going to be the case right here, but this is going to bring a little bit of a very small scale dynamic storm that's going to fly across areas of the country as we're moving throughout the week. And this is where it'll kind of ride across right here and bring, somewhere in here some heavy snow. So we certainly need to watch this for this, and we might bring out the cursor again here in a second. But that's what's going on. This is the first system, okay? And then we look at the next system behind it, and this is more of a large-scale upper trough of low pressure. And we certainly need to watch the trends with this. So if we keep talking about the first system, and stick with me, we're going to talk about the second system for you folks wondering what I'm talking about being excited. And please don't be too excited yet. We need to get some more of these model runs. But anyways, we'll talk about that here in a second. But moving forward here, we're getting into tomorrow morning. Already widespread rains breaking out across Oklahoma. Not really anything in the form of storms. But as we're getting into tomorrow afternoon, some heavier rain starts to develop here in northern Oklahoma. This could mix with some heavy burst of snow, but I don't expect any accumulations. But down here in southeast Texas, we'll keep this moving. And look at some storm development right in here. I don't expect these to be much in the way of severe, but they could be. And then we get a little bit later into the overnight hours. At this time, we're around 11 p.m., 12 a.m. at night tomorrow night. And some storms begin to develop. We watch all in these areas down to here for any kind of strong to severe storms that gets going tomorrow night. And then they'll last all the way into Wednesday morning. You could still have strong to severe storms ongoing in southeast Texas, maybe even western Louisiana. But just looking at the latest HRRR model, it certainly doesn't look that bad. I can tell you that right now. In fact, we'll move it all the way into the next day, and it only goes 48 hours out, but shows about midday Wednesday some storms beginning to break out in northern Louisiana, southern Arkansas. So more so just heavier rain up here in Arkansas. But here's that low right here, kind of starting to strengthen very quickly. Notice in about a 3-hour span, it drops about 2 millibars. So it tells you that it's strengthening because it's a negatively tilted trough in this situation, and we have a strengthening storm system, even though it's relatively small. So we'll be able to talk more on this severe weather threat probably tomorrow, especially for Wednesday, which I think will be the bigger severe weather threat. But for now, not a whole lot to speak on it. So the snowy side of this first system, we're starting off Wednesday evening. As we get this low pressure that begins to fly across areas of the Midwest and the Ohio Valley, some snow begins to break out early Thursday morning. This will be heavy, wet snow, maybe even in areas of northern Missouri, certainly in Iowa. And then the column crashes. We get into Thursday morning, heavy, wet snow. I really think this won't be a cold, dry snow. This will be a heavy, wet snow, potentially for northern Missouri, even western Illinois, potentially. Eastern Iowa. This is getting into Wisconsin. And watch out Milwaukee. This could be a bigger snowstorm for you guys. Maybe even Green Bay. Maybe even northern sections of Michigan, the UP of Michigan. Chicago, you're going to need some shifts a little bit further south, but it's possible. The GFS is a little bit further south. But this is just too southeast for Minneapolis. And just too warm for Chicago on the latest Euro. But everybody in between could have a fast-moving, wet, heavy snowstorm that can move through very quickly and then move on out. And then the other system begins to develop right behind it. So what does the European ensemble say for snowfall with this first system? Well, This up here is what's falling right now. By the way, I saw a report where there was cloud to ground lightning with snow falling in Minneapolis a couple hours ago. Pretty wild to see. But anyways, this first system right here, this is the signal we got. Okay, this is through Friday morning. You got a decent snowfall mean for areas of Iowa, for northeast Iowa, and then for most of the state of Wisconsin gets potentially a few to several inches of snow. And a pretty solid snowfall mean up here for you folks in central and eastern UP of Michigan. Stephen made a good point up here, who lives up in the UP of Michigan, that normally when the rest of the country is quiet, it's pretty active up here. And that makes sense, because what happens is normally the jet stream kind of shoots north, and when that happens, the storm track shoots north, which means all the activities to the north and everybody to the south is just getting above average temperatures, pretty much boring weather, inactive weather. So we'll look at what it shows for the GFS ensembles, and it's a little bit further south. It gets a little bit closer to Chicago, but in general, the same idea. It's in pretty decent agreement. It really is. There's some questions about northern Missouri, I would say. But you guys could get, if you're in far northern Missouri, could get some accumulating snow. We'll know more about this here in about a day or so. But this is our system that we just talked about. Now we're going to switch gears and talk about our system potential. Well, we know there's going to be a system, but what's going to happen with it? So this was the first curveball that was thrown today, the latest 12Z Euro. So what happens here is this first system moves on through. We just broke that down. Okay, this moves through. This could deliver some snow. Certainly some snow for Maine for you folks overnight Thursday into Friday morning. Okay, just one of them typical heavy kind of front end thumps of frozen precipitation that potentially might even go to rain. Here comes this upper trough, or this cold front that comes. You got two pieces of energy. The first piece of energy is with the southern stream down here. This low pressure is beginning to develop, and a lot of rain. It's going to be a soaker probably most of the day for your Friday for the southeast, for a lot of folks in the southeast, all the way up into the Delmarva area. Low pressure pops off, okay? Cold air's trailing it, but it doesn't really connect that much. So there's no huge storm system develops. But if you keep this going, low pressure heading off, and you're thinking, okay, well, that's all she wrote. Meanwhile, you have some northwest flow kicking off in the mountains of North Carolina and Tennessee. I think if you're happen to plan your mountain trip this weekend, or if you want to just take your kids to see some snow this weekend, maybe Gatlinburg, surrounding communities, this might be another shot, kind of like that trip I took a few weeks back. This could be a pretty gnarly snow event for you folks up there again. Now, there was a lot of people like Maggie Valley that ended up getting a lot more snow than was originally forecast. I don't know if that's going to happen again, but this might be one of those weekends where, if you really are desperate to see snow, like my kind of desperate, because you guys know I love snow, maybe this is the weekend you take your kids up to the mountains, or just you up to the mountains to see a little bit of snow. But we keep this rolling, getting into Saturday about midday. Notice you got some rain beginning to shift to some snow in Pennsylvania, lighter snow back here in portions of West Virginia, western Pennsylvania, and Ohio. Not a big deal. But immediately, a secondary low pops off and strengthens very quickly. And when this happens, it throws some heavier precipitation back in to areas of the I-95 corridor. I'm even talking about Baltimore, Philadelphia, eastern Pennsylvania. These guys that just have not got much snow this year. The Euro throws you guys a bone right here. Right here. We stop it. This is around Saturday evening. Okay, this is heavy rain changing to a burst of heavy wet snow at the end. And you get a little bit of accumulating snow. And this continues through late Saturday evening, all the way into the overnight hours. And then by the time you're waking up tomorrow, it's gone. And that's all she wrote. Now check out what the latest GFS did. The GFS 12Z was not buying it. Okay? In fact, I was going to show you the 12Z run and what it shows. This is what the 12Z run showed for this same system. I really think that we're going to have an area of heavier snow that develops somewhere probably Friday-ish. Might hit areas like St. Louis, central areas of Illinois, ride to the Ohio Valley, and then it gets too warm for everybody else in the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. Backside snow, late Friday night and a Saturday morning for you folks, maybe in the mid-Atlantic. The mid-South and areas of the Ohio Valley, okay? And then, but after that, the low pressure flies on off and delivers a little bit of snow, maybe back-end snow for just a little bit for Boston and the coastal regions of Maine. And that's all, okay? So that's what the latest GFS showed, right? I'm sorry, the 12Z. Look what the latest one showed. after the 12Z run. Okay, here it comes. Here comes that first system. Here comes the second system. Same kind of deal. Watch out. Sometime Friday morning, an area of snow could really develop. This could be some heavier snow too, guys. Falling in some colder temperatures. So watch out a little bit deeper into southern sections of Missouri, compared to the first system as we're getting into Friday morning. This could deliver a quick hitting, accumulating snow potentially for St. Louis, getting into Illinois, maybe even some snow up to Chicago. This moves into areas of Indiana. We're getting into Saturday morning at this point. Okay, check out this little backside, little upper level low that's bringing some moderate to heavy snow in portions of the Ohio Valley. Then watch what happens here. An additional low pressure develops right into here, somewhere in this area. All of a sudden, you got rain changing to back in heavy snow in the spine of the Appalachian Mountains. And you're thinking, well, okay, that's just snow for the Appalachian Mountains. But here it comes. Watch this. You keep this going, I'll stop it. This is for Saturday evening. Suddenly, you have heavy snow falling in West Virginia, southern Pennsylvania, Maryland, Western Virginia. But here it comes. This moves right into Washington, D.C. You switch from rain to heavy snow sometime Saturday night, and it snows very heavily. Okay, just based off the GFS. This is going to change many times, but I'm telling you, when you get some changes like this in the short range, medium range, I mean, we're well inside a week. We're in the 4 to 5 day range. When you get changes like this, man, then it warrants a little bit more attention, okay, than changes 7 to 8 days out. Okay, when you get changes and you're sneaking into the shorter range, then it certainly needs to be you need to pay attention to it. So the latest GFS gives areas like Washington, D.C., Baltimore, even Philadelphia, some heavy wet snow. And you see these really dark blues right in here? That is very heavy wet snow sometime Sunday morning. And then the Delmarva area just gets a very quick hitting snowstorm. But it delivers a good bit. I'm not even going to bring up the snowfall accumulations for you guys because, guys, trust me, I would love to show you all this, but there's a lot of people out there for whatever reason. They believe something, and then they tell everybody and their cousin that's going to happen. And I know there's a lot of people that do it. Once upon a time, I did it when I was younger. But it's definitely not something you want to do because it's a setup. It's a setup for failure when that 90% of the time that it doesn't happen, you have to go back and tell them, oh, well, the model's changed, and you end up kind of looking like a dingus. So trust me, I've been there and done that. But just remember, we really need to see what these models do overnight. If they turn around and go back to the same stuff they've been showing over the last 2 days, it was just a blimp. But it's wild that, the GFS and the European did it. So the European ensemble for that signal, it's weak for now. Okay, but it does show a little bit of a snowfall mean for you folks in the Mid-Atlantic. Of course, some pretty high confidence that the Northeast is going to get hit something by this, but we just don't know who. But a decent snowfall mean for you folks in the Appalachian Mountains. I think there will be more snow than an inch in the Smokies, but we'll see what happens. The latest GFS ensemble, pretty solid signal too, but the signal was much weaker for your folks in the Mid-Atlantic that are hoping for snow that really have not seen it this winter, at least appreciable snow. So we got to watch this, guys, see what's going to happen. What we need and pull for, if you're a winter weather fan, you really want to pull for the OOZ, the overnight models and the morning models. You really want to pull for me to give you some good news in the morning. Okay, so that's what you're pulling for. And we got to see what these models do overnight, because if they keep showing something like this, I think for another kind of suit of models, then I think it has legs. I do. So here we go. Check it out. The European is the most aggressive with this snow. I think this could certainly happen this weekend in the Tennessee and North Carolina mountains. So like I said, if you're really hungry enough to see some snow, I apparently was a couple weeks back, but Ritchie Cabin, a few thousand feet up in the air. Gatlinburg's always a good spot, but, for example, my area, Gatlinburg, was supposed to get 1 to 3 inches of snow. We didn't even really get a half an inch. I was happy because I was seeing it fall, and I really had no complaints, but, it's always hit or miss. The higher up in elevation you get in these Northwest flow events, the better. So think about that if you're renting a cabin, and certainly I think that it would be more so on the northwest-facing slopes of these mountains. But you never know. Just like the last one that happened a few weeks ago, It broke containment. Areas like areas around Maggie Valley, I heard, got 4 or 5 inches of snow. Yeah, it was wild. It was wild what happened. But that's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless all y'all, and y'all have a great night.